Welcome to the Aiming Five Hole podcast. Ryan, what a crazy week in the NHL. Where do we start? Habs, Leafs,
I'll tell you
and
what.
now Islanders.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We're gonna the big
We got to start
story
with the
because it
Leafs.
happened today. It was the Islanders, but because it's been sitting with you for all of this time, I think you need to process
We
Keith
have to talk about the Leafs
Pelley's.
first.
We got to talk about Keith Pelley's Leafs press conference because
Wow.
I know it's been eating at you for many days
Well,
now.
it has. And I want to start off by saying, reminding our listeners that I worked with Keith and worked for Keith for many years at TSN. He's a incredibly bright, smart, passionate guy who's always been really good in front of the media. And I'm pulling for Keith. And I do believe that Brendan Shanahan left him a bit of a bad situation in Toronto, but that press conference was a disaster. Um, and I really like Keith and I'm pulling for him. But let's break down a few of the things that he said in that press conference. First of all, blaming the performance this year on the surprise, or what he said, the train that hit them, that was the Montreal Canadiens and the Buffalo Sabres. You're a Habs fan. How do you feel about that statement where they were depending on two perennial teams? Well, let's forget about the Habs for a second. The Buffalo Sabres are a perennial bad team being bad again. And by the way, the Montreal was made the playoffs last year. So how were you hit by a train that was the Montreal Canadiens? You were depending on two teams to be bad to make the playoffs? Really? Like
Well,
I said, I love Keith and I worked for him and I worked with him when he was at the DP World Tour and I was at NBC Sports. But that was just, I'm sorry, a dumb comment.
it's one of the dumber things, honestly, I've ever heard a sports executive say, and I don't say that lightly, because you don't build a team to beat bad teams. You build a team to beat all of the teams. And
Right.
Buffalo and Montreal, while both of them are probably better than most expected at the beginning of the year, even though a lot of people thought Montreal would take a bit of a step forward, maybe not 100-point type step forward, but definitely a step forward. There are 31 other teams in the league other than the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you have to construct a roster that is on night after night going to be favored to beat them all
Yes.
in order to win the Stanley Cup.
You
To say that he was hit by a freight train that is two surprise teams in his division, like
just a really, and like I said, I know Keith. I'm pulling for Keith. He was handing the bad bag, but just a ridiculous comment made that you're relying on other teams being bad when you're projected to be a playoff team, projected to be what in your minds to be a Stanley Cup contender in the East and challenge for the East. You've had a bad season. The teams performed horribly they've performed horribly, being completely under expectations. It's just, and just to make a comment like that was just tone deaf to the fans, to the rest of the league, to everybody. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I had to listen to it two or three times just because I didn't think I heard him right. And he's being completely lambasted in the Toronto media by
right.
everybody, and rightfully so. I'm sorry, but rightfully so for those comments.
Well, but let's get to the substance of the press conference, because the most important sort of substance to come out of it was that ownership is committed to a retool, not a rebuild.
Which is problematic because any GM or hockey man coming in right now is probably telling them this is a rebuild.
Yeah.
The biggest problem, and we talked about this last week, is that we have no prospects, we have no picks, and we have very little star power left on the team. What he said was we have a base of superstar talent or talent on this team where you don't need a rebuild. A retool is fine, and building around these players. I, I question that comment because you don't see it on
He
this
has
team.
two superstars.
Yes,
Two. He has
two.
two, and they're both forwards.
Right.
He has
The
a
defense needs to be
a
rebuilt.
he has a. I think you would probably agree with me if you were to like just measure it up against the
Absolutely.
rest of the league. Their blue line is well below average. It's not bottom of the league,
Well,
I don't think, but it's
yeah,
well below
absolutely. And
average.
it's not, to me, it's not, look at losing Tavin this year has been a big loss. And I've said this, we said this last week, our goaltending has been questioned on the this year, but to me, it's not the goaltending. I've said this before. We've given up the most. We're playing the most amount of time on our own end than any other team in the league. We're giving up the most amount of chances in high scoring positions on the ice than any other team in the league. The goaltending would have had to, the goaltenders would have standed on their head in order to keep this team competitive because we're just giving up too many chances in high scoring areas. Like it's just the team defensive structure of this team has been terrible from day one, and
And
we've
by the
never
way, just to get
recovered.
back to what you were saying, Chris Tanev is 36 years old.
Yes,
If you're banking your postseason hopes and the quality of your team on a 36-year-old defensive defenseman, you're
absolutely.
screwed. You're absolutely screwed. And by the way,
But he's been a
I
big piece.
think I think just to add a little bit to your point before, I think that part of the goaltender injury issues stems from the number of high danger scoring
Oh,
chances they
we've
give
been
up.
outshot badly. We've given up more shots than any other team in the league,
And
other than the New York Rangers.
the more action directly in front of the crease, the more the chances go up of a tweaked knee, a tweaked shoulder, a tweak
Absolutely,
everything. Like I think
absolutely.
there's got to be a positive correlation. Here's me talking like a
Or a
statistician, like I
negative
don't know what I'm
connotation
talking about.
to,
Like there's a positive correlation, statistically speaking. I would argue between defensive liabilities and goaltender injuries. I
right,
have to believe that's true.
right. Absolutely. And look at now Keith needs to fix this. He was handed a bit of a bad bag. He's handled it poorly in the press. And now we need to fix this. We need to bring in, I think one of the biggest mistakes, look, I was not a big fan of Shanahan. The Shanahan plan didn't work, right? Shanahan had to go, but probably a mistake not replacing that president's position or that hockey operations position. So now they need to hire a hockey operations person. Who's that going to be? I don't know. I'm not professed to be who's the top talent in that area. Then they need to bring in a GM. And the other comments he made, and look at I've been a proponent, is that if you're going to fire Berube in the offseason, mercy kill him, mercy fire him now. Like, don't make this guy go through the rest of the season. But he was quite confident, going, I'm not the hockey guy. I'm going to let the GM to make that decision in the offseason. However, now the fact that you haven't done that, good coaches are walking out the door. We'll get to in a second the New York Islanders, but hiring Deboer today, what I would have thought would have been the next Leafs coach is now tied up with somebody else. So they now need to fix this in a vacuum of who's available from a hockey perspective, from a GM perspective, and
Okay, I'm gonna look. We don't want to spend the entire
no, no,
episode
no.
talking about this, so we'll move on in a second. But I would say honestly is they need to rebuild this organization from the ground up.
Right. It's not just an on ice problem anymore.
Yeah, and
It's an off
so
ice problem. It's an
it
organizational problem. It's an
it's
organization philosophy.
it's scouting and development.
Oh, it's top to bottom.
It's player development and your trainers and your physical therapists. It's
Top
your
to bottom.
equipment managers. It's everything. You've got to
Which
have
which
everybody on the same page with a common mission to create a winning team.
right. Which now to me this is not a retool anymore. This is a rebuild. A
Then you
rebuild
need
from top to bottom,
then what
inside,
you
on the
need
ice and off the ice.
then what you need is, and I'm gonna advocate for this as a concept, not just because the Canadians did it, but because I think it's the right thing to do in today's NHL, and that is to find fresh talent.
Yes.
Forget Pete Deboer, forget Mike Gillis,
Oh, Mike Gillis would be a disaster as far as I'm concerned.
or some
There's
of
a
the
reason
other
Mike Gillis hasn't been working since he left the Vancouver Canucks. Is
right.
because nobody wanted to hire him and no one believed that he could do a job.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you hear all sorts of rumors of the. I mean, you even hear that they were thinking about bringing in Chris Pronger, which would be a huge disaster because the guy thinks hockey like it was 15 years ago.
Yes.
When I heard him commenting on whether or not the Canadiens brand of hockey could be successful in the playoffs, he just sounded like a caveman.
Oh,
He just
absolutely.
sounded like he didn't understand the game anymore,
Yeah.
which was really disappointing to me because I kind of like him. Um, he may not be the most articulate of the analysts on television, but I liked his perspective. I just didn't think I didn't
Right.
think his I didn't realize, I should say, that his philosophy of hockey, professional hockey, is as retrograde as it is.
Absolutely.
Um, but yet you've got to come up with fresh blood. Elliot Friedman was talking about how they might be looking at Sonny Meta from as one of the assistant GMs in
Yeah.
Florida.
Who's a
You know,
data driven,
prop
and Keith kept talking about data and
get it,
AI, and he's a data driven GM.
yeah, and then find a young coach, somebody who's probably been testing out new philosophies in the minors and things like that. Like, just don't bring in another retreat because I think another retreat is going to land you in exactly the same place.
Uh, I
Especially if you're
I
doing a
I don't
rebuild.
disagree, but
Especially if
his
you're doing a
whole
rebuild, then it's all about player development,
right,
right? They brought in
absolutely.
like you bring in a guy like Berube, he's not going to develop a team.
No, no. Look at the Berube
He's gone.
philosophy didn't work. The
Yeah,
philosophy didn't work. The players don't want to play that system. So either we need new players, we need a new coach, and in this situation, I think we need both.
yeah, but
Like, and
I don't understand the reasoning behind the Mercy killing. That to
uh,
me,
he's gone. He's
you're
gone.
playing out the string anyway.
He's playing
Just
out the string, but here's the problem: is that he's not going to do them any favors at this point.
but it's
At
not going to
least,
do any harm.
no, I understand. Yeah, I do believe it's going to do harm because I believe that they should have tanked. They shouldn't have gotten the point the other night. They shouldn't have got the other points in Anaheim the other night. And 3 points puts us in the top five, bottom five.
I
I
don't think
I
he's
do
going to
believe
have
a
anything to
tank
do with it.
should have been a tank. And look what the Florida Panthers are doing. The Florida Panthers are tanking. They're pulling
Oh
guys
yeah,
out of the lineup. They're resting guys who they say are hurt. They're not hurt.
that's
And
a
they're
big story
resting
around
guys.
the
The Leafs
league.
should be doing the exact same thing and protecting that pick because we need to start building from the ground up. And the only way you can do that is you start drafting players, and we don't have a draft choice until 2029.
Yeah. By the way, that is a big story around the league. And before we move on to the Islanders, I want to talk about this for a second because it really could you imagine? I mean, the players that they're sitting, the quality and number of players that they are sitting without obvious injury.
It's
Okay. Can
insane.
you imagine? Could you imagine if an NBA team did that, what Adam Silver, the
They
commissioner
are
of the
doing it.
NBA,
That's the
would do?
problem. Have you not
Well,
heard the comments from what's his name and owns the Mavericks, the old owner of the Mavericks? He said the league needs to get over this and accept tanking because they do tank in the NBA. I do believe they tank in the NBA. I don't believe the
well,
NHL
they,
teams have. I believe the Panthers are. I don't believe any other team's doing it. I think the Panthers are
look,
taking that
the
philosophy.
NBA teams do tank,
Yes.
right? But they don't tank like this. They don't rest their entire starting
No.
five
No.
for no obvious reason, other than maybe Milwaukee, who's just sitting
Yeah.
Giannis for no particular reason. But look, um, the Florida Panthers, you know, everything about them screams a really, really well managed organization, which just
Yes.
pisses me off because I hate them in every meaningful way. Like
I get it.
for every reason, legitimate and stupid, I cannot stand that team. And this tanking thing is one more thing. However, I will say they got waxed by the Pittsburgh Penguins
Twice,
and twice.
back to
But
back.
not only that, we got to see Sidney Crosby absolutely flatten Matthew Tkachuk.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that because I missed it. So that
I
gives me
watched
something to
it.
go and watch.
I watched it probably around 15 times.
I might have to watch it 100 times because if he
Yeah,
flattened them the way you said he did, I'm gonna
yeah.
get a lot of enjoyment out of that.
It was great. It was great. And by the way, just riffing on the Kachucks for a second,
Well, the whole Kachuk
as
family,
much as it
the
would,
uproar that's brought in Ottawa, you brought up a great point. Did you heard what happened on the podcast, on the brothers podcast?
oh yeah, oh
Keith
yeah,
came on the podcast, and you remember a few years ago, he ripped the Florida Panthers for playing crappy down the stretch, and then they went on to lose the Stanley Cup final. He's trying to take a page out of that book. Now he's ripping the whole Ottawa Senators franchise and players
yeah.
and Allmark specifically. And I do agree with him on the whole thing of Allmark not playing in 2 out of 3 nights and saying, I'm too tired. I can't play tonight. That is a little ridiculous. But, these I don't know what to say, but I've never loved the Kachucks from the beginning, and
I know.
this ain't
As much as
giving
I'd
me
love
any
to see
love.
another Canadian team in the playoffs, a year of the playoffs without either Kachuk
Would be
brother,
beautiful.
I wouldn't complain.
Nope, not
I
at all.
wouldn't complain.
Not at all.
Okay, so let's move on to the Islanders because that is the big news. I can't believe it happened
Wow.
today. We had very little time to psychologically prepare for this discussion.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, so for those of our listeners who have been living under a rock, the Patrick Roy led Islanders have fired Patrick Roy after losing four consecutive games with only 4 games left in the regular season. They are, what is it, 1 or 2 points out of a playoff spot at this point?
They're
I think
one
it's
point out of a
one
playoff
point out of a
spot.
playoff spot. Again, they've lost 4 in a row. Um, I guess 7 out of their last 10. And they bring in Pete Deboer, who is an amazing coach at almost getting you there.
Yes, nice. That's it. I was wondering where you're going to go with that comment, but that's probably a pretty accurate comment. But
Yeah,
I think the interesting part of this is that before this firing, with 4 games left in the season, no other coach has been fired with less games in the season than 8. The last time
yep.
before it happened this year with Vegas firing Cassidy and bringing in Tortorella was the year that the New Jersey Devils fired Peter Fatorik and brought in Robinson, and then the New Jersey Devils went on that year to win the Stanley Cup Finals. So all of a sudden, the Knights then do it 4 games ago and or 3 games ago and bring in Torts, thinking that they're going to go on a run here. Now we'll
They
talk about that
did.
in a second. Well,
They beat two of the worst teams in
they
the
beat
league.
2 of the 3 worst teams in the league. Oilers, I'll give it to them, but the 2 of the 3 works. They brought him in a pancake situation. We'll see what happens going forward with the last few games of the season.
Right.
But 4 games left in the season, you fire your coach
Yeah,
and
it's to
hope
me,
that
it's
that's just insane to me that you fire your coach with 4 games left in the season and hope that's going to spark this team and not just freak them the hell out.
I honestly I don't I I have a
They're
lot
a
of respect.
fragile team to begin with.
Yeah, look, I've got a lot of respect for Matthew Darsh. I think he's made some pretty amazing moves.
This is bold.
So this one's super bold though, and I I don't know where to go with that.
Well,
That's
like I said, I know you made your comment about the Leafs shouldn't care about DeBoer. I was actually thought DeBoer would be a good fit in Toronto as a coach, depending on what happens going forward. But wow,
if you're
four
going
games left in the season. I'm no Islanders fan.
if your goal is for the Leafs to almost win their first Stanley Cup since 1967,
I'll take
then
almost over what's going on right now.
then Pete DeBoer is your guy.
I'll take almost over what's going on right now.
By the way, did you see the Kings? The Kings social media team absolutely roasted the Leafs.
I didn't
Um,
see it.
yeah,
I
they posted the final score for the game and showed Toronto 6, LA 7, and they said, "Huh, ironic. It's the same year
oh
the Leafs
yeah, I
last
did
won the
see
Stanley
that.
Cup."
Yes, I did. Yeah, 67. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah. You know what though? Where are the Kings right now? Oh, look at that. Still a point out of the playoffs. But you know what? Look, I said the Kings were going to make the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I still hope they do over the
Well,
Knights. But
you need that second round draft pick for Scott
I
Laughton.
do need the second line draft pick. But like the Islanders thing,
To
just
me, it's mind blowing. I like, what's the best possible thing that could happen to make a move like that?
well,
Like, you think that they're going to go on a crazy run and win the Stanley Cup, like the Devils did, who are a much
I
better
think
team?
they're hoping the same thing that what's just happened the last 3 games with the Knights. They get the coaches bump, at least gets them into the playoffs,
Uh
and who
huh.
knows what happens from there. Do we think they're going to win the Stanley Cup playoff finals? No, but I think they're hoping that this gives them a little bump, gets them into the playoffs, and who knows from there. We've all said the East is wide open. I don't think it's as wide open as the New York Islanders, but
Yeah.
they could make the playoffs, right? They make the playoffs and whatever. Because they're only a point out of the second wild card, but they're also only a point out of being third in the Metropolitan Division. So
True.
they
It's not a
it's
power
not for this.
division.
They're playing for two spots, not just one, right?
Yeah.
So who knows? That gets them that bump to get them back over Philly now. That puts them in the Metropolitan Division third place, and it gets them, a better spot and a hope. But wow, who
Well,
knows?
clearly they're not worried about the X's and the O's because you don't
No,
bring in a coach with 4 games left if you're like
no.
thinking about making some tactical
Well,
changes in
what
your
you also
game.
hear, what you've heard from Tortorella over the last 3 days is that, or the last week, is that I'm not coming in to change the structure. I'm not coming in to change how they play. I'm coming in to motivate them. I'm coming in to give them confidence. I'm coming in to provide the guidance and the wisdom and blah, 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 BS to try and help them steady the ship and move them in the right direction. Right. And
Mm,
I think the Islanders is the same way. This is that coach's bump that we talked about with the Knights that you're
right.
hoping the same thing. Right.
Right. And by the way, I don't think this move is, I mean, the timing of it is kind of insane. Although you're making I won't say compelling, but you're making a reasonable case for why they might do it.
Right. But I also
But
would say this.
but I'll remind you that I thought that Roy was going to get fired no matter what in the offseason for that business that he pulled
Oh,
sitting the Barzal line for an entire third period over
well,
one
he
dumb
lost
mistake that they
to
made.
your point, he lost the room as well. Just the same
That'll
way
kill that
Cassidy
you
did.
lose the room for you sit your number one line because
Oh,
one guy messed up
absolutely.
to send that kind of message in a game that you really need to win.
Right.
That to me that sealed his fate right there.
But I would also say this, the difference between what the Knights have did and why is very different than what the Islanders did and why, because look, you can pull all the experts in the world and you'll say the talent right now on the Knights are a Stanley Cup worthy, talented team. Forget about their goaltending,
Mm,
but the talent on the forwards and defensive situation compared to what the Islanders have,
is
Schaefer or
better.
not, is way better. And the
Yeah, they're much
chances,
better than the
if the
Islanders.
if the if the Knights weren't in the West and having to face potentially Colorado, Dallas, or Minnesota, they do have a team that technically on paper could win the Western Division. No one is going to say that about the Islanders about the East.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have the talent on that team to be the one thing that's the saviors, the thing that's helping hurting the Knights. The Islanders have the goaltending,
Yes.
right? That's what saved the Islanders all year long. The Knights have the complete opposite issue. They got a great mix of forwards that may not be gelling and players that gelling the right way, but they got terrible goaltending. The Islanders are the opposite. They've got a mediocre,
Right.
talented team with a great goaltender. So let's move on. But it's
Okay.
crazy what's happened. Let's talk about your Montreal Canadiens because
Sure.
what happened tonight, losing 3-0.
I think it was a tired
Cole
team.
Caulfield was is gotten to the precipice of 49 goals, potentially the first guy to score 50 since Stefan Richer in 1989-90, who got 51 that year. He can surpass him as the greatest goal scoring Hab in modern time.
Mm-hmm.
First guy since Guy Lafleur to score 25 goals on the road in since 1979-80. This kid is something special. What happened tonight?
Okay. So, well, he hasn't
And they were
scored
on
in
an
two
8 game
games.
winning streak going into tonight.
Yeah. So they were on an 8 game winning streak and they played amazingly in some of these games, even though they got outshot in a lot of them, especially but some of the stronger teams like Carolina and Tampa. But their defensive structure was great. They didn't make a ton of mistakes. Their puck management was top notch. And where things went south the last couple of games was starting last night, their puck management was awful. They looked a little bit like the team that lost consecutive games to Anaheim and San Jose a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, before this whole streak started. And those two games are what flipped them around because the team realized they needed to get their act together. And hopefully, these two games, they were fortunate enough to hold on and win last night. But tonight, I think it was the second half of a back to back. It was the first game home after a long 5 game road trip. Regardless of the energy in the building, which was off the charts because everybody wanted to see Caulfield get his 50th. They wanted to see
See it
Slavkovsky
get it at
get his
home.
30th. They want to see, well, they've got the next three at home as well. So I'm
He
sure he'll
should get
get
it.
it. But, they want to see Suzuki get to 100 points for the first time since Matt Naslin back in, I don't know what year that
Jeez, pull
was.
that year out of your hat.
Forget it. But, but yeah, there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of excitement. Marty St. Louis after the game thought that the players were trying too hard to get Caulfield the puck, and it's a bit of a distraction right now. So we got to
Right.
get that goal out of the way. But
Well, one of the
last night
things
they looked nonchalant. Tonight they looked a little distracted
I've watched a bunch of the Habs the last
and
little while, as
tired.
you know, because I'm
Well,
watching less
you
and more
got to
Leafs and
you got
flipping
to watch some
around,
good
trying to
teams
find
somewhere. Yeah,
something to watch. One of the things I've noticed is, and in watching the games, I'm actually surprised at the end of the game when I look at the shot clock and I see them being badly outshot. These guys are dominating some games in the offensive zone and not getting the scoring chances because they're not shooting the freaking puck.
yeah. And I
They're
think
trying to pass their way into a better situation, shoot
yeah,
the puck, put it
yeah.
on the net, and they're not doing it.
I can't argue with that. The that comes in a couple of forms. I think your top two lines are being very slick and looking for the perfect play, and they're scoring enough goals to say maybe that's not the worst the worst tactic in the world because they're the I don't know second, third highest scoring team in the league. But the bottom two lines, who are um, sort of advanced stat darlings at this point in terms of possession time. They forecheck really well. They spend a lot of time in the zone, but they're just cycling the puck. They're not.
Yeah.
They're
They're
chewing
not
up
creating
clock.
chances. They're not getting
Yeah,
pucks to the net. They're basically doing their job of keeping the puck out of their own zone,
yeah,
keeping
and
it deep and working the other team's defense. But
yeah, they're
at
doing
some
a
point
great
you need to
job of
get
it.
pucks to the zone. You got to
You
get
got to
pucks
get
to the
pucks to the
net.
net. You got to get pucks to the net. The other part of the problem with the Canadians tonight was that the last couple of games, and Frankie Corrado was talking about this during the game. Uh, the power play has gotten very static. They're
Right.
basically just go, the way they set up in the zone with Hudson at the point, and then you've got Suzuki and Demidov on the
One
wings.
timers on each
So
side.
it's Caulfield at the goal line and
It's becoming
Slavkovsky at the
predictable.
bumper. It's very predictable, and they're just basically it's just going, it's going Hudson, Suzuki, Caulfield, Suzuki, Hudson, Demidov, and then it just goes around the outside. Every
Yeah.
once in a while, they'll
The
try a
puck's not
seam
getting low and
pass.
then getting into the slot. And
Yeah,
whoever this low slot player is that Suzuki at this
it's
point?
the slot player, the bumper player is Slavkovsky, and they're trying to force the puck a bit to him, and their
Right.
sticks in the way, and it's just been super frustrating.
Right.
But look, I don't want to be a naysayer because the Canadians won 8 games in a row before
Right.
losing tonight, and they're still in the hunt not only for the
Well,
division the division lead, but they could take the conference lead
well,
if they're only 4 points behind Carolina.
Well, that's the whole point is right now the Atlantic Division I think the whole Eastern, other than we've said this before, other than Carolina, who has pretty much got the Metropolitan Division locked up.
Right, yeah, but they may
Every
not finish
other
first in the
spot,
conference.
every other spot in the Eastern Conference is up for grabs. Not saying that some guys are going to fall out of the playoffs, but each position is up for grabs. It's such an
Yeah,
incredible tight race for each playoff spot, and they have a chance to win the division and win the Atlantic because they're only 2 points behind Tampa Bay. They've all got similar games left, 4 or 5 games, 6 games left. They could win this division and get home ice and end up playing a wild card team, which they're better set up to do. And
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it's really
Well, look,
important right now.
it's really important, and there's two things that I think could be awesome if they. So, best case scenario, they catch Tampa and they catch Carolina because by the way, they're playing each of them,
Yep,
but between now and the end of the season. So they catch them both. They
those are
win the
4 point
Eastern
games.
Conference. Yeah. So they win the Eastern Conference and they play the 8 seed. A first round playoff matchup against Ottawa would be a bloodbath, and I am here for it. I think it would be
It'd be
fantastic.
fun. Subway
Yeah,
series to some
those
Subway
two
series
teams
almost. Yeah.
hate each other, and the Canadians would probably find a way to hopefully to put Nick Cousins in his place before he does any
Right.
damage to anybody on the Canadiens.
Right.
Or let's say they fall just short of catching Carolina, but they do catch Tampa Bay and they end up winning the Atlantic Division. Well, who would they play? They play
The
the first
Bruins.
wild card. Sorry, and this is a shout out to my buddy Ted Ames, who I know listens to this podcast. We have an ongoing bet. He's a Bruins fan. I'm a Canadiens fan. If the Canadiens play the Bruins in the playoffs, this
He's not
bet
getting
would
my
be
$100 bill, is he?
no. This bet would be renewed, and I'll talk about it more if it comes to pass. But the gist of it is the loser has to buy a jersey of the winning team and wear it and have their photograph taken in a conspicuous, crowded location and posted on social media for all of their friends to see.
Nice.
And then they send the jersey to the winner
Nice.
with the year number on the back. So
Nice.
I am really looking forward to getting a Canadiens jersey with the number 26 on the back. But Ted, if you're listening, I'm hoping we get our bet renewed. But
And Ted, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go on and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 100. We're only at 30. We're at 40 now.
oh, okay.
Come on,
Hey,
Ted. You
better
gotta
than
get your
last week.
friends going. I got my hockey buddies all now subscribing. You gotta get your buddies going.
Well, my hockey buddies are ex-hockey buddies since I've been out of the
Yes,
game
yeah,
for a little
you
bit.
gotta get.
I gotta find my way back.
But
I
you
gotta
you made
find
a
my way
great
back.
point. Is that I think the Bruins have pretty much locked up that first wild card spot. We've now got one, two, three, four. You got down to Washington. You got 5 teams, 6 teams if you include Philadelphia, who's in that third Metropolitan Division position,
Yep.
competing for one playoff spot, maybe two if you because the Islanders can go all the way up to there. But
Yep.
Detroit has fallen off. I don't know how they're still in this because they've played terribly in the last 2 weeks.
They stopped scoring.
Well, injuries, Larkin being injured is just hurt. They've stopped scoring. You still got Columbus, who's fallen off. They've lost 3 in a row. Everybody in that position now between New York, Detroit, Columbus, Washington have all lost multiple games in a row. It's just incredible how they've fallen off, and they're all competing for a playoff spot here, guys. Someone's got to pick this up and say we
Yeah.
want this and grab it because it's there
Yeah.
to be had. It's just incredible.
It is. I will say, and a shout out to another friend of mine, Evan, who's a big Philadelphia Flyers fan. Porter Martone, the rookie, gets the
Gets
overtime
his
winner.
first goal of the NHL.
First goal in the NHL is an overtime winner. So, maybe that gives the Philly Flyers a bit of a boost in the last week and a half of the season.
And to him too, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Okay.
I love it. But let's go to the West.
Let's go to the West. And look, my big message about the West is don't look now, but the Edmonton Oilers have won 7 of their last 10 games without Leon Draisaitl.
Incredible. McDavid has put this team on his back.
Yeah, and
It's
so
incredible.
what happens? What happens is the big 3, the big 4 going into the playoffs now.
Let's not quite go there yet. Still say, as McDavid said, thankfully they're playing, a slap and tickle game compared to everybody else. A little bit of a pancake fight. But all 3 of those teams, except for them, like Anaheim's 4-4 and 2 in the last. Vegas, if it hadn't been for the coaching change, they're a disaster and their goaltending's not very good. Although Corey Hart played very well. Carter Hart played very well. Carter Hart played very well against the Oilers last night. But everybody's going, "Oh, Marner scored 5 points against Calgary. He's back." It was the Calgary frickin' Flames. You and I could get 5 points against the Calgary frickin'
Wow, aren't
Plains.
you
Come
bitter?
on.
Aren't you bitter?
Give me a break. He went missing in the 12 games previous, and all of a sudden he scores 5 goals against a pancake team, and you're like all of a sudden excited. Give me a break. This guy's going to. And by the way, how many did he get against the Oilers last night? Because he went missing even in that game. So it's just forget it. Maybe he had a point. I don't know. Who cares? It's just
I
crazy.
love it.
But
I love it.
How's your daughter feeling right now about your Kings? Because they're on the precipice of making the playoffs. They're tied with Nashville for the last wild card spot. But what's going on with the Kings? They've only won 19 games in regulation this year.
I know.
They've 31 wins, 19 in regulation, 12 games in OT, and they've lost 31 games in overtime, most record of all time. If it hadn't been for the point, This
It's
team,
the
like the
weirdest.
Vegas Knights, would be so far out of this thing, it isn't
It's
crazy.
literally the weirdest. I don't know how do you the weirdest standings line. I guess like I don't know how you. I don't know. Is it a line in the standings? But they are 31, 26, and 19.
It's just like, come
What is
on.
that?
Well, in 31 of those games, only 19 have won in regulation.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
makes. I don't know. That's a weird one. The good news is they've been waiting all season for Quentin Byfield to start playing like
Quentin Byfield,
Quentin
he
Byfield,
showed up.
and he showed up. So hopefully, maybe he can put the team on his back, along with the bread man and Kempe, and get them into the playoffs. Who knows?
Your your daughter's not out here to give us the business.
No, no. Honestly, like if she were here, she'd still be angry about Trevor Moore ruining the game against Montreal. I think like that may have ruined the season for her.
But you still look at that, forget about the Central Division, which is so far out ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
You've still got now, same thing. There's five teams competing for one playoff spot. They're
Yep.
so bunched up between Nashville, LA, San Jose's gone in a bit of a tank. As much as Celebrini last week had the week of his life. He had that game. I forget who he played. Was it Anaheim or he was just
Oh yeah, it was
incredible. He
Anaheim when he had two goals,
took
two assists. Yeah.
took over. Like I told you to go watch the highlights of the game because I watched two of those three periods. What he was doing was just incredible. This kid just every time I watch him, I just in awe of him more and more.
He's a
Um,
special, special kid.
all of a sudden, Winnipeg's back in this somehow. The Blues aren't out of it. The Kraken have lost three in a row, so they're kind of falling out of it. But still, like I need, as a Leaf fan, I want all those teams to start playing well because I want them to leapfrog the Leafs. But this next 2 weeks, we're 2 weeks away from the Stanley Cup playoffs starting, and very little has been decided.
Yeah, very little. And by the way,
Very
Gary
little has been
Bettman
decided.
loves it. Gary
Yes,
Bettman loves this. The more,
absolutely.
the more teams that are sort of in the mix at this time of year, the better.
Look, you got to give the shout out now. The Buffalo Sabres, first time in the playoffs in 15 years.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah,
They're now officially in 15-year drought over, which
yep.
now makes the Detroit Red Wings of all teams. Would you ever think you were saying this? The Detroit Red Wings now are the team with
The
the
longest
longest
drought.
drought in the NHL. Would you ever think you were going to say that? The years
You
of this
know,
team,
the years that they were so good and managed to
perennial
stay good for,
playoffs,
yeah,
and now you look at
it's a
who knows what
cyclical
goes on in
game.
Toronto. I hate to say this, but I said this a few weeks ago. Toronto is a few more bad moves from becoming the 1980s again and having the same issue
The Howard
and
Barrel
not
years.
making the playoffs for years on end. If
Yeah.
we don't make the right choices in the next 2 or 3 months, we're going to become the Detroit Red Wings and the Buffalo Sabres. And we're going to be
Wow. Okay. So
back in the
we're gonna
1980s.
start this episode and end this episodes with all of the Maple Leaf doom and gloom you can hear. It's
Let's,
the Maple Leaf doom and gloom bookends. There's a title.
yeah.
There's a title for the episode
There you
right
go.
there.
Doom and gloom Leafs. But look, I'm excited because of so many things that can happen over the next 2 weeks. I'm watching so much hockey that's not just the Leafs. I've been watching so much of other teams playing and enjoying it because I don't have any stress right now because I know my team is in the
I
crapper.
know it's
It's
fantastic, and it's
fantastic. I'm watching a lot of the Habs. I'm watching a lot of the Oilers. I'm watching a lot of San Jose. I've watched a lot of the Golden Knights lately. I'm
I've
and
been
I,
watching Colorado too.
I'm watching a lot of Colorado. It's fun hockey. How
Yep.
exciting! How deep is that team? When you watch
Yeah.
this team, how deep is that team,
Yeah. Every line
top
comes
to
at you.
bottom? And they're rolling again. They're absolutely rolling again. It's exciting to watch. They're still the Stanley Cup favorite. So, anyways, we got to get off the air here. What are you looking forward to over the next 2 weeks as we lead into the playoffs? What are you
The
looking forward to?
the race for the race for the Eastern Conference crown.
Yep,
Let's let's go Habs, go Habs, go. Let's see what
nice.
we can do here.
I got two things. I'm waiting for my Habs hat. And anybody that's watching this and not just listening, for the first episode since
I'm
we've gone
ordering
on
it right
camera,
now.
I'm not wearing a hat
I'm ordering it right now.
because
I'm on
I do not
Amazon
have the
ordering it.
Habs hat that Ryan has said that I could have. I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to your point about some of these races and how they're going to finish off. It's going to be so interesting to see how this plays out coming into the playoffs. I'm excited to see the Habs finish, and I'm hoping that they pull out the title here. Buffalo is going to be fun, and I'm with you. I'm hoping that we're a Kachuk less less playoffs this year.
It'd be great. It would be great, but it would nice. Look, you always want to see another team in the playoffs, a Canadian team in the playoffs.
I would, but I'll live with
but
the
if
Oilers
they,
and the Habs.
but
for
by the
sure.
way, if the Oilers, if the Senators don't make the playoffs, maybe Kachuk's not back with the team next year. So
Maybe.
that would make it a lot easier to be comfortable with the Senators in the playoffs. All right. Well,
All
great
right.
talking to you this week, Phil.
We'll see you next week on the Aiming 5-0 podcast when we'll have this discussion all over again.
And you will have a bright red
you will
Canadiens
see me
hat.
in a Canadiens hat. So we'll see you next week with the Montreal Canadiens hat on next week. Have a good week. See you later,
You
Ryan.
too. Bye, man.